So the authority of a ruler is based upon moral authority. Moral authority is primary. If you don't have moral authority, there's no persuasive power. This is very strange. In the modern times, we do not necessarily accept it. A person who is extremely bad, like a ruler, is if the person can formulate good policies, everybody benefits. So we don't worry too much about the private life of a ruler. But from the Mengxun and the Xunzian point of view, it is not sustainable. If you have a group of crooks and they formulate very good policies for the benefit of the people, that is not sustainable. It's too much emphasis on wealth and power. And eventually, they will become so smart because they have more information, more idea, and more resources. They will benefit themselves. And as a result, the society will be, the well-being of the society will be relegated to the background. And the project of human flourishing as a whole will be diminished. And in this particular sense, the cultivation of the person is something that every human being will have to do, and the rulers will have to do even more in order to set a standard of inspiration for the society as a whole. So when we call the sage king, we're not saying this guy has a different nature. We're saying that he has the same kind of intelligence, yet he cultivates himself in a more serious way and try to enhance that quality of cognition. And as a result, he's able to perform a function that will benefit all of us. So the king is not defined in terms of wealth and power, control of resources. The king is always defined as a moral person. And then this relates the meaning of politics. The meaning of politics is to develop a secure society. Secure meaning unique military might in order to defend the state. Security is critical. Then, of course, economics is critical, the livelihood of the people. And then education is critical. So the sage king would maintain security for the society, but at the same time will provide economic well-being and the process of education. So the ultimate meaning of politics is to provide an environment so each and every human being will be able to not only survive, to flourish. And so politics is rectification to teach the father to be fatherly, the son to be filial. The 5 relationships. And these 5 relationships all contribute to the harmonization of society as a whole. And so differentiation from the Xunzian point of view, social differentiation is critical. It doesn't matter, of course, the real situation is very different, of course, what particular occupation. The farmers act in the spirit of the farmer. That's true with workers, true with merchants, and true with intellectuals. And the difference is that unlike the Hindu idea of a caste, you belong to a certain caste, not only yourself, but your children and children's children will remain. In the Confucian situation, it's open. Of course, the overwhelming majority of the people turn out to be farmers. But there's no reason why a farmer cannot become cultivated and eventually will even become a sage and a sage king. There's a statement in Mencius, but it's just assumed in Xunzi that all the sage kings emerge from the populace as a whole. Some people actually began as a farmer. Some people, one person actually came out of the jail, so he was in prison, and he managed to really cultivate himself, merging 2 can be a merchant and eventually do it. So this is very much maybe an exaggeration of the American idea that each and every person, well, immigrants are not possible, but each person can become the president. So this assumption, of course, there's one, but the openness is clear. Now we know all the constraints, right? If you don't have 10 million, don't run for government. And yet, this openness, this potentiality, we see many examples. Because you see the example, then you know there's a source of inspiration or stand of inspiration. I think both Xunzi and Mencius seems to have that. Therefore, it's not democracy, it's a form of populism. The populism is based upon the importance, the most important, not occupation, of the most important people in the society turn out to be the commoners. Because overwhelming majority of the people turn out to be commoners. And the cultivated person, including the sage kings, will have to provide, as I pointed out, the general condition for the commoners. So theoretically and in practice, each one of them has the potential of realizing himself. And this is a controversial point. If you read the text, you probably find examples that would criticize my position. This is an open idea. Now, Xunzi is not at all interested in extraordinary phenomena. Geomancy. All kinds of ways of observing people and making some conclusions, almost like our notion of genetic control. If you're born with all kinds of these qualities, you're born extremely violent, extremely jealous, or extremely aggressive, it's difficult for you to cultivate yourself. And this kind of genetic control, normally when we understand it as a proposition, as a scientific result. Normally, we never consider that as a defining characteristics of ourselves in terms of personal. If you become aware of the fact you have all these potentials, it's human being. If we're talking about me as a person, of course I don't accept it. If I accept it, I don't know how many of you simply accept it. Why should I go to school? Why should I cultivate myself? Why should I learn? So if you look at this personally, rather than a scientific proposition out there, your reactions turn out to be very different. So there's an assumption in the Confucian tradition, you take everything close to yourself. The first step you take is from your own position. When you move from your position to other positions, you develop sympathy. When you move from your position higher up in terms of cultivation, you have a better vision of how the other people will be able to come to this particular position. So the vertical notion and the horizontal notion ought to be integrated. So the more you cultivate yourself, the more you feel that you're responsible. And this responsibility is internal, it's not external. This sense of the community based upon differentiation is not at all in conflict with the idea that human flourishing is available to everyone. Learning, in this particular sense, ought to be totally routinized. The idea is practice. Anything you do as a person, even if you learn how to walk, you learn how to bow, you learn how to eat, requires practice. If there's no practice, you will never be able, especially in the Xunzian sense, you will never be